You're listening to the Clutter Fairy Weekly, a weekly webcast and podcast brought to you by the Clutter Fairy in Houston, Texas. If you'd like to participate in one of our live webcasts, please visit cfhou.com/weekly. You'll find a calendar of upcoming webcasts, as well as instructions for joining the Zoom meeting via the app or by phone. We'd love to see you. That URL again is cfhou.com/weekly. Now here's the weekly episode. Enjoy.
Hi, Clutter Fairy fans. This is a special edition of the Clutter Fairy Weekly for March 25th, 2025. I'm your co-host, Ed Gumnick, and I'm speaking with Gayle Goddard, certified professional organizer and owner of the Clutter Fairy in Houston, Texas.
Hi, everybody. The Clutter Fairy Weekly is the webcast and podcast that digs deep into the clutter that piles up between you and the life that you want to be living. We explore the habits and behaviors that lead to clutter, and we suggest strategies to slow the accumulation, reduce the collection, and comfortably manage the stuff we decide to keep. Next week, I'll actually be at the NAPO Summit in Chicago when this episode goes online. So we decided to take a moment before I leave town to answer a few questions from our audience, so our dedicated viewers and listeners can get a maintenance dose of the Clutter Fairy while I'm away. In our surveys, we always offer our audience the option to ask us questions about anything that's on your mind. Not every question requires a whole episode to answer, so we saved up some of the shorter answers for this episode, and let's get right to your questions.
Okay, the first one comes from the Mags, who asked for our advice on how to let go of children's artwork, schoolwork, old clothes, and so forth. Mag says, I think many of you struggle with this. How much is too much to keep?
This is like the international mom problem, how to deal with children's artwork. And the thing is that there's more coming every day, every week, every year. And then it's a new school year and you get a whole nother round, and it's just a never ending flow. And the teachers, particularly in preschool, elementary school,
Right,
where
early years.
like a whole bunch of their learning and their time is spent creating artwork and gifts for you and painting things, and that is all about keeping the kids busy, and then they send it all home to you to prove that they've been doing something. And so you get a constant flow of things coming home every week. Oh, look what your kid painted this week, right? So there is a big volume, and it's pretty, from when they first go off to preschool until high school. It's this, the nature of the paper changes, but it is a steady flow coming. So, and then I will tell you, 12 years of school paperwork, no child wants to come and have you send them 15 boxes of their old schoolwork later. They're not going to want more than a box. They're not going to want the 15 boxes that you shoved into your closet for the whole time they were in school. So you need to keep that in mind as you're thinking about what to do and how much to keep. Someday your kid will find some of it interesting, but they won't remember any of it. For them, their little brain isn't recording yet. You have the adult brain. You're recording all the memories of them coming home with this great little piece of artwork. And they may be super attached to it in the moment, but that memory, their experiences as a little kid, doesn't really record very much. They don't keep very much of that. So when they get the box later, they'll flip through it and find it cute, but they won't feel as attached to it as you do by any stretch of the imagination, because they're not going to have any memories around most of it. So don't be surprised by that. Don't be surprised when their kids are like, Mom, why did you send me all this stuff? Yeah, they don't really want to see it. Some of it they'll think is adorable and precious, and mostly they'll be like, okay, now that I've flipped through 20 pieces, that was quite enough. Thank you so much. In terms of storing for your own space, you have to keep your own closet, your own cabinet, wherever you're storing the stuff. You have to, how much you keep has to be dictated by your space. And on the back end, just because you have a whole lot of space doesn't mean you need to keep more stuff. I think you have to be reasonable in terms of your storage space if you have limited storage space, or if your storage space is being used and shared with something else. But you don't want to dedicate an entire closet to all of your kids' keepsakes. Like, that's just not, it doesn't make sense. It's not, in the long term, it's not a good storage solution. So A, you want to designate space, and B, you don't want to keep every little thing that they provide you. You can take photos instead. I think people don't think about taking photos until much later. But you could certainly take photos in the moment as you receive this week's stuff and you're looking at last week's stuff that needs to come off the refrigerator and you don't feel comfortable throwing it away, you can take photos of those things and have a digital file of it instead of the actual object. And you can let that item go away. And you can do that every week. You can do that every semester if you prefer when there's a break. But you have to be diligent about, or maybe at the end of the school year, but then you have to sometime during the summer, you have to find the will to go through an entire school year's worth of work and pick your favorites. And so I think it would be easier for you to take some pictures and discard some things early on, especially when they're 5 years old, 4 years old, 6 years old, and they're bringing home 5 pieces of art every week. And you don't know what to possibly do with them. And they're doing more of them at home because that's how you're keeping them entertained in the afternoons and on the weekends. And so there's just an endless flow of things with artwork where they're being creative on there, right? And so you're going to have a big volume. And the idea that you would save all that up in a box and then make yourself this chore to go and dig through it all at the end of the school year, if that's how you want to handle it, great. But I think it creates a big pile for you and a big chore for you that you will then likely try to avoid. So let's keep that in mind. If you can take some photos as you go along, and when this week's artwork comes home and you take it off the bulletin board or the refrigerator or wherever the some people put them in temporary frames and they have a place where there's several frames hanging up and they trade them out every week as new stuff comes in. If that's how you want to manage the stuff, great. But when you cycle it out every week, I think that's the best time to, okay, that was not the best piece of artwork. That's not the best representative sample of what my child can do. And you can take pictures and let some of them go.
This
I
strikes me as an opportunity to get your kids in early on the idea of decluttering. In our family, since there were six
Yes.
kids, each kid had a treasure box. That's what they were called, and it was
Yeah,
a
yeah.
cardboard box that we were encouraged to decorate ourselves, and then all of our accumulated um, artworks and other treasures went into that box.
It was
And
vetted by you.
right,
Oh, see?
yeah,
And how great of your mother to think of that because she had 6 kids worth of stuff coming home. And where was she going to put 6 kids worth of stuff? 6 boxes was still a lot of boxes, space to take up in the house, I'm sure.
yeah,
So she had to come up with a way to manage the volume, and that was a great idea. And then, here's your box. If it doesn't fit in your box, you got to take some other stuff out to put something new in. Like, I totally get that. My favorite one of this is I went to somebody's house to help them work in their space, and they had at one of those trifold foam core things that had been,
right.
they had
Like
done a
science fair
presentation to the
project.
science
Yeah.
fair, exactly
Hmm.
100%. And it was super tall. I mean, it was a big piece. And she had it stored in the closet. And I was like, oh, this must be from your son. When did this happen? Oh, he was in 8th grade, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so how old is he now? Oh, 42. Like, come on, man. Your 42-year-old son does not want the trifold from the science fair anymore. And you sure as hell are not going to give it to him. And if you do, he's going to throw it away, right? So that's an example of at the time the science fair happened, you could have maybe recycled the foam core or taken a picture of it and thrown it away then or let it sit to the end of the school year and then taking a picture of it and throwing it away. But the idea of holding on to it for 30 years before you got rid of it was just like, why was it taking up space in the closet? It was never going to be anything to anybody after it served its purpose. And so it was cuteness and it showed all of his hard work, and I'm sure he spent a bunch of time on it, and he was never going to want that again. He's never
Right.
going to want to take that home and put it in his own house somewhere. He was never going to hang it up on the wall. So it's not something that's worth parking in a corner for 3 decades so that you can give it to them later, because
Yeah.
that point is never going to come for that kid, right?
Okay, what about clothes?
So clothes is something people are really funny about clothes. This is another mom issue with clothing. So you have a baby, you're madly in love with the baby, and you buy all these clothes for the baby and then the kid, and they're always so cute and they outgrow them really fast. And so the clothes hardly ever, like the clothes that you put them in all the time probably get barfed and pooped on a lot, and eventually they get stained and some of them get worn out and destroyed, right? But in general, all the really cute stuff that you buy and your parents buy and your friends buy for the kids, they get worn 2 or 3 times, 4 or 5 times. They manage to not destroy them with bodily function. And they're still super cute, and you remember the kids being cute in the clothes, and so you always want to keep them thinking, oh, those are so adorable. I can't bear to give them away because my child was so cute in them, and I'm going to save them for my grandkids. Like, well, that's 30 years from now, right? Like, do you really want to hold on to clothes for 30 years while the elastic deteriorates and dies, while the cloth starts to deteriorate in place, depending on how and where you store it? Like, why not, once the kid cycles out of it, you can save a favorite or two and then send the rest to somebody that you know that can use them right now, somebody else that can be cute in the clothes, somebody else who is struggling to manage with all of the things that you have to have for little kids, and this would be a support for their budget, and pass them on and let somebody else wear them and get another 5 or 6 wears out of it, and let them pass it on to somebody else too. The thing about finding your child adorable and everything that you buy for them means that you end up with a bunch of bins with kids' clothes in them for 30 years in an attic somewhere. And when you finally take them out to give them to the grandkids, who knows? Have they been compromised by humidity? Have they been destroyed by heat? Has all the elastic died? Has the fabric, has it started to deteriorate or melt or fall apart in some way? Like, you can't predict what's going to happen 30 years from now with stuff that you leave in a bin forever. And so the idea that you will support your kids' future kids with these clothes, your idea of what's cute will have nothing to do with what the new mom's idea of what is cute. And it may feel like a burden for you to barf all these clothes off, that then they feel like they have to use all of them because it came from you, and maybe they don't like them, and maybe they feel like they're old. And so, and you guys are buying them all new stuff anyway, because when the grandkids come, you're going to start shopping for them. So you're going to buy yourself out of all the clothes that you want to give them that are old, because you're going to go straight to the store and buy new stuff. So I think this is a place where moms attach a whole lot of memory and thought to the clothes, but they don't think about how that is not super practical in the long run. And so I would say take pictures of your kids in the clothes that you think are the cutest, and then send them on and let some other mother enjoy them and also find her kids cute in the clothes. And do it now while the clothes are still in good shape and fresh and usable, so that they don't just sit in a box and die for 30 years and wait to be just given away 30 years from now. That's crazy. So do it now. Let go of them now. And if
Okay,
you love the kids in the pic, the photograph of the kid in the outfit is the best way to keep your memory of how cute they were in the outfit. There you go.
okay, let's go on.
Okay.
Eve wrote to ask, Gayle, as part of your services, do you ever work on purchasing or implementing more attractive storage solutions? I don't want to accumulate more clutter through buying more containers, but my
Mhm.
storage pieces are ancient, worn, and discolored. Some are 20 to 35 years old or more. The cute solutions on some YouTube and TikTok accounts look appealing, but I also see that most of the time their containers are filled with only a couple of things instead of being well utilized.
Right.
The question is, can you help a person with more appealing decorative storage solutions once there's a reasonable amount of stuff to house?
Of course, I do help people make decisions about what kind of storage is going to make sense for them. But we always do that after the quantity of stuff that needs to be stored is a known quantity. Um, buying containers just because they're cute and then they turn out to be too small for what you're trying to house makes the containers useless. So you really want to be thinking about uh, going through the stuff, finding out what your quantity of keep is, and getting rid of the stuff that you don't need to keep, and then going to buy containers based on what you have to contain and where that container has to go. Because those two things dictate the size and shape of the containers that you buy. And then you can go out looking for something cute, but with a purpose. Like, I need a container that does this, or is this size and shape that is also cute. And so then
Right.
you don't just randomly buy cute stuff that doesn't serve your purpose, right?
Right. It's got to fit in this, it's got to fit on this
Shelf,
shelf or
this
inside this
cabinet.
cabinet. And
Mm.
it's also got to contain these items that I have in mind to keep there.
Have now sorted, right?
Right.
And it's totally okay to give up old, crusty, dying containers. Like, if you've had containers for 30 years, I think everybody's gotten their money's worth out of those.
Right.
And then,
You've gotten your money's worth on the 79 cents you spent for it in
I know, 20
nine
years ago,
yeah,
right?
1976.
And the fact that they're yellowing and discolored, it's just telling you that the material is probably drying out, getting
Brittle.
crusty, getting
Hmm.
brittle, and it's on the verge of being able to be cracking anyway. So you might as well send those on their way and go hunting for new ones. But you don't want to buy the containers first. You always want to declutter and release first, and then to buy the containers with the stuff in mind. So you're not spending money that you don't need to spend, and you're not buying things that are too small or too large for where it's going to go, and you have some thought in mind about what and how much you're trying to contain when you go looking for solutions, because that will allow you to buy more effectively, more efficiently. And I think that's the biggest driver. Is we can all go shopping, as we have all proven, and we can all go shopping without thought and spend a bunch of money, and you can spend a bunch of money on containers just like you do on shoes, and end up with a bunch of containers that don't help. So you really want to filter that container shopping through the lens of what you have to contain and where it has to go before you start buying stuff.
Okay. Jean asked, although I have always been a clean, minimal organizer that has helped many others, I have a deep anxiety that I will turn into my mother in advanced age.
Mm.
What can you say to Jean?
So, Jean, I really hear that you are afraid of deteriorating in some way, and I'm getting by implication that that was an experience that you had watching your mother deteriorate in some way and become, um, sort of lose her executive functioning around managing stuff, and that it really bothered you to watch her do that and to have to deal with the results of that. And so I'm going to say first, you are you, and your personality is still who you are. And that's a minimal, clean, organized person right now. And the only thing that's really going to change that is if you suddenly get some kind of illness, right? And then once an illness becomes a problem, your starting point is your house with minimal stuff that's clean and organized. So there's not much you can mess up to start with. And if you lose executive function because you're getting Alzheimer's, you're getting dementia, you have stroke or some other thing that
Memory
compromises your,
loss.
yeah,
Yeah.
memory loss, that messes with your ability to function like you think you should. By that point, having lost executive functioning of some kind, it won't be easy for you to buy things. It won't be easy for you to navigate and go shopping, to be in motion around that. And you'll have other people caring for you at that point. If you are having dementia, then you're going to end up someplace where you can be monitored and cared for. You maybe, if you have severe memory loss, you're going to be in a memory care unit. Like, somebody is going to be helping to manage you, and you won't have as much physical and mental capacity as you need to go and make stuff happen, to go and suddenly rapidly shop or clear up or destroy where you're living. So it won't be a big mess. Even if you do sort of lose control, you will be surrounded by people who are taking care of you in a place that's designed to help you. And so you won't be able to make a big mess because of the restricted function and access. And if you become your mom, it's okay. If it really happens that you um, inherit her, whatever compromised position she was in, and you suddenly become that person, it'll be okay. There'll likely not be enough time, resources, energy, or access to create a big problem. And I really get that you're frightened to be like your mom. And it was probably really scary for you to watch as an outsider looking in at her, what kind of compromised personality she had as she deteriorated. But as the person that will be in your mom's position, I don't think it'll be as scary for you. It probably wasn't as scary for her. If her family will be taking care of you, and you'll have given them a very minimal, organized place to start from, and it won't be as difficult for them to manage you as I suspect it was for you to manage your own mom. You still loved your mom and you took care of her, and your family is still going to love you and take care of you. So I just want to say out to you, don't stress about this. If it happens, it'll still be okay for you and for your family and the other caregivers to take care of you. And it won't be as hard because you have started from such a clean, organized space already. You've done a whole lot of the work in advance. And so they're not inheriting your lifetime of unfinished projects plus dealing with what your loss of executive functioning does to your environment in the moment. They only have to manage you in the new place that you are, the new mental functioning place that you are. They don't have to also go back and clean up everything that you had done before and not handled because you've already handled it all and you stay clean and organized right now. So I would say it's not going to be that hard to eradicate. It's not going to be easy to eradicate your personality as because of who you are already. Like that's not going to be something that you typically would do. But even if it's something that happens and you slip a little bit, you're starting from such a much better place and you'll be surrounded by people taking care of you at that point, and you will have lost some ability to go and procure and add and make chaos, and people will start taking over things from you. And so it'll be okay. I don't think that you will be able to create a similar mess to what I suspect you had to deal with for your own mom. So I hope that gives you a slightly different perspective to think about it. And I just want to say to you, if you're doing that much right now in your own space and keeping it managed, you're already helping your family so much because that is makes it so much easier for them. And you, whatever you do after that, nobody's going to have nobody's going to have issue with you. They're still going to love you and it's all going to be fine. And I just want to tell you, don't stress. Don't stress about it because I think it's not going to be nearly as bad as you think.
Okay,
There.
let's talk about next week.
Okay.
Not all decluttering and organizing tasks are created equal. Some projects give us a fresh look at our cherished belongings. Others are just plain chores, but they all need to get done. Next week, we're going to suggest ways to leverage your strengths and minimize negative feelings as you strive for balance in decluttering project priorities. Join us on April 1st for Balancing Act, Managing Your Decluttering Projects and Priorities. Watch for an audience survey in your email inbox in the next day or two.
And thank you for joining us today. You are officially on spring break. There's no tittle for you today, so you don't have any homework to do. And we will be back next week to talk again. Thanks for joining us, and I appreciate the letting us do a little short show while I'm out of town. So I will be back with a full show next week. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.